The Indiana Fever front office is about to do another roster overhaul for the 2026 WNBA season.
The Indiana Fever just pulled off a move that absolutely no one expected, and I mean no one. Only hours after being knocked out of the playoffs, the team suddenly released 8 players in a single night. Just like that. The entire WNBA world went into shock. Fans couldn't believe it. Analysts were scrambling to understand what went down, and even opposing coaches were blindsided. So, what could drive a franchise to completely tear down its roster this fast? Was this part of some long-term, calculated rebuild plan they'd been quietly preparing for? Or was it simply a panic response, a desperate reaction to yet another early exit that left everyone frustrated and searching for answers?
I believe a lot of players will be exiting the building like Elvis, bruh. They got to get the hell out of Dodge. Now, I'm telling you right now, I believe more than half of this team is going to leave. I just got to keep it real. A lot of players is going to leave. I believe a few big names is probably going to leave. And more importantly, we need to get the ball back to Caitlin.
One thing's for sure. This situation goes far beyond basketball. This is about power, pride, and pressure boiling over behind closed doors. It's about internal egos clashing in the front office and the urgent push to construct a championship-level roster around Caitlin Clark before their window closes. Now that the chaos is starting to settle, everyone's asking the same questions. Who's safe? Who's next to go? And what does this massive shakeup really mean for the Fever's future? Because the truth behind those 8 cuts runs much deeper than anyone first imagined, and it all begins with what was really happening inside the organization's walls.
No one predicted them to go this far, especially without Caitlin Clark. Now, granted, they was projected to be, final contenders, but that was with the roster that they had. Obviously, they had a whole nother roster, and like I keep telling you, momentum was the key.
When that final buzzer sounded, it didn't just mark the end of the Fever's playoff run. It signaled the end of an entire chapter for the franchise. Inside the locker room, the tension was so thick it was almost suffocating. Players who'd battled through injuries, lineup changes, and non-stop locker room drama suddenly realized their futures in Indiana were hanging by a thread. Coaches stayed quiet, the atmosphere turned heavy, and whispers spread quickly. Something major was about to happen. Sources close to the team revealed that cutting 8 players wasn't a last-minute choice. The move had been in the works for weeks. Reports of deep friction between head coach Stephanie White and the front office had circulated for months, mainly over playing time and chemistry issues. The Fever's late-season collapse exposed every flaw, inconsistent rotations, growing frustration between veterans and rookies, and by the time elimination came, management had already decided what needed to change.
We all know Stephanie White was running a whole lot of sets, bro. Whole lot of sets, whole lot of off-ball things, whole lot of things that Caitlin Clark really don't like to do, bro. Let's just be honest. Caitlin Clark is being the biggest trooper for this damn basketball team, but I think, just like I stated before,
the Fever had poured everything they had into Caitlin Clark, the league's brightest star and its ultimate marketing engine. But as the season went on, fans began asking a tough question. Why wasn't this team actually built around her strengths? Analysts repeatedly noted how far the offense had drifted from the fast-paced, free-flowing style that made Clark a college sensation. Instead, it turned into a slow, predictable system filled with forced sets, clunky rotations, and questionable lineups. And yes, Clark did everything she could to adapt. She really tried, but the lack of rhythm was obvious to anyone watching. By the final game, she looked drained, carrying far too much responsibility while trying to thrive in a scheme that never matched her natural game. Then came the injuries. One after another, key players went down, exposing the team's paper-thin depth for everyone to see. The front office started criticizing coaching choices, while players began questioning the training staff. As the losses mounted, one truth became impossible to ignore. Change was unavoidable, and it had to happen immediately. The Fever weren't about to waste another year with one of basketball's most hyped stars stuck in a broken system. So right after elimination, the phones lit up. Agents got the calls, lockers were emptied, and 8 players were informed their time in Indiana was over, just like that.
Granted, they was running this off ball and doing all these different experiments. Without momentum, I don't believe they would have made it as far. I believe they was playing meaningful basketball just due to the amount of injuries that the team took, and it kind of motivated them. They said it in their exit interview. The bench power pretty much motivated them and gave them the energy they need to prolong and get through a bunch of them long stretches in them series.
It was a ruthless move, but one that sent an unmistakable message across the league. The Fever were officially done tolerating mediocrity. Their mission now was clear: build a roster capable of winning around Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston. Not just scraping by, but truly contending for titles. Still, while some fans celebrated the idea of a clean slate and an authentic rebuild, others saw something much more complicated. Beneath the surface, this was about internal politics, shifting power, and growing tension among decision-makers. Because this wasn't just a roster shakeup, not even close. It was a warning shot from a front office that had finally reached its breaking point. And if you think the changes stop here, think again. The next wave could be even bigger. Because after this sweeping purge, one thing became absolutely clear. The Fever are finally ready to build a team around Caitlin Clark, the way it should have been from the start.
Let's listen to what Caitlin Clark had to say years ago.
That's a huge reason why I came here, and that's what she preached to me in the recruiting process. You know, you're going to have the ball in your hands a lot. And I think a lot of my final schools kind of had that same look, but I think the read and react offense that we run was super important for myself. You know, you're making basketball reads. It's not a set. You're not being told what to do every single time you come down the floor. You're just playing the game you love.
For months, fans have been practically pleading with the franchise to just let Caitlin be Caitlin. No more overcomplicated play calls. No more forcing her off the ball for no real reason. What made her a generational talent at Iowa wasn't only her elite scoring, it was her freedom, her instinctive flow, and her total command of the game. When she played loose and confident, her energy elevated everyone around her. But once that freedom vanished, the entire team's rhythm seemed to vanish too. Inside the Fever's walls, multiple voices have been pushing hard to revive that same read and react style of offense that Clark dominated back in college. Even her former Iowa coach, Lisa Bludder, and her offensive system have been cited in internal discussions as the blueprint for maximizing Caitlin's full potential. In that scheme, she wasn't just a scorer, she was the engine, the conductor, the heartbeat of everything that happened on the floor. And now, with the roster trimmed down and new cap space available, this could finally become her team in every possible way. Sources close to the organization say this offseason will focus on bringing in players who truly complement her style. High IQ shooters, smart movers, and teammates who can read her instincts instead of waiting for scripted plays. The idea is to recreate an Iowa on steroids version of basketball, fast, creative, and unpredictable, keeping defenses scrambling non-stop. Insiders even joked that if you're not ready to shoot, cut, or move without the ball, don't bother showing up to camp. Through it all, Caitlin has remained patient, but anyone paying attention could see her frustration growing. In press conferences, she stayed professional, but she subtly hinted at wanting a more open offense. Fans remember her quietly saying she just wanted to play basketball again, a simple but powerful statement that spoke volumes about how restrictive things had become. Behind that calm demeanor is a fierce competitor tired of being boxed in by a system that doesn't fit her. For Fever fans, this shift represents more than just a tactical change, it's a complete identity reset. The front office understands that when Caitlin is unleashed, everything transforms. The crowd's energy, the team chemistry, and even how opponents prepare for them. This rebuild isn't just about removing underperforming players, it's about removing excuses. It's about aligning every part of the organization, coaching philosophy, recruiting focus, and on-court rotations, around the player who single-handedly reignited interest in the entire WNBA. If the Fever fully commit to that vision, they could become unstoppable. But it all hinges on one crucial factor: whether Stephanie White and her coaching staff can adapt to this new era. Because the same coach known for her rigid playbook now faces the defining test of her career: evolve with Caitlin's game, or become the next casualty of this transformation. The front office has already made its move and delivered its message. Now the question is simple: will the coach embrace the vision or stand in its way?
The style of play, and this is what I've been saying, we need to go back to the basics. And the basic is this style of play with Caitlin Clark, giving her the ball. Let her play freely, openly. Let her do what she do. No calling different sets going up the court. No doing none of this. Put players around Caitlin with that know how to obviously resets, know their responsibility, because Caitlin Clark said it hurts.
As the dust settled after the massive roster overhaul, one name kept echoing behind closed doors: head coach Stephanie White. Once praised for her patience in developing a young roster, she now stands at the center of a growing storm that everyone in the organization can sense. According to insiders, her relationship with the front office has quietly soured over time. And the reason is fairly straightforward: her coaching philosophy no longer aligns with the direction the Fever are determined to pursue. White's structured, methodical offensive system had its moments, sure, but with Caitlin Clark leading the charge, it began to look painfully outdated. Fans saw it. Analysts called it out. And now the front office has made one thing undeniable: change is coming, whether she's ready or not. Supporters of White argue she was dealt an impossible hand. Multiple injuries, constant lineup changes, and a roster still learning how to play alongside a rising superstar made consistency nearly unattainable. But critics say she simply refused to evolve, stubbornly clinging to a rigid scheme that choked the team's creativity and slowed their pace. Far too often, the Fever's offense looked predictable: endless pick and rolls, stagnant isolation sets, and little room for Clark to rely on her natural instincts. For a player built on improvisation, rhythm, and quick reads, it was suffocating. The real breaking point reportedly came late in the season, when internal meetings turned tense. Front office leaders pushed for a looser, Clark-centered offense built entirely around her decision-making, while White stood her ground, arguing the team wasn't ready for that level of freedom. That disagreement snowballed into a quiet power struggle that shaped the final stretch of the season. After the playoff loss, sources say management viewed the defeat as the final piece of evidence, proof that White's approach couldn't carry the team when it mattered most. Players picked up on the divide too. Some veterans backed their coach, insisting structure was necessary for discipline and stability. But younger players privately expressed frustration, describing the system as robotic and over-controlled, like they were playing scared. Caitlin Clark, ever composed in public, kept her comments professional, but her body language said plenty. On the court, the hesitation was clear: the quick glances to the bench, the moments where instinct gave way to second-guessing. It looked like a player holding herself back. Now, with 8 players gone and a reshaped roster, all eyes are on Stephanie White and her uncertain future. The whispers about possible replacements are growing louder. Reports suggest that the Fever's front office has already begun quietly exploring new coaching options, ones capable of installing a modern free-flowing offense that mirrors Clark's college success and plays to her strengths. Whether White earns another season may come down entirely to her willingness to reinvent her approach. Because the message from the top couldn't be clearer: this franchise belongs to Caitlin Clark. And if the head coach can't build around her properly, the next departure from Indiana might not be a player. It could be Stephanie White herself.
Bree Hall gone, Shea Petty gone, Natasha Howard gone, Bree Turner gone, Damster's gone, that's 5. Ariel Powers, Sydney Colson. Hold on, Sydney Colson. And Damster's 8, yep. I believe they lose 8 players. This is just my prediction.
When news broke that the Fever had released 8 players in a single night, social media completely exploded. Fans were scrambling for answers: who stayed, who got cut, and why it all happened at once. Within an hour, names started surfacing, and the pattern became obvious. This wasn't random. It was intentional. Every player who was let go symbolized a clear shift in direction, a loud statement that the Fever were done settling for mediocrity or inconsistency. Reports say the cuts started with bench players who struggled to make steady contributions. Veterans like Shea Petty and Dawana Bonner, you wrote Dairis Dantas, assuming it's Damiris Dantas, were among the first out. Both had moments of real promise, but recurring injuries and uneven production derailed their seasons. The front office wanted durability and dependability, not more potential that never fully materialized. Then came the biggest surprise: Natasha Howard. Despite her championship experience and veteran presence, insiders say her combination of high salary demands and up-and-down performances sealed her fate. She wanted top-tier money, but Indiana wasn't going to spend that kind of cap space on someone who didn't mesh with a system now built entirely around Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston. The next cut stunned fans: Lexi Hull and Sydney Colson. Hull, a defensive fan favorite, had been a reliable contributor, but her declining stats and ongoing injury concerns made her contract difficult to justify. Colson's release hit hardest on a personal level. Her leadership, humor, and locker room presence had been invaluable. Still, the front office made it clear they wanted youth, speed, and versatility, and her limited offensive numbers simply weren't enough to keep her spot. Ariel Powers' departure was perhaps the least surprising. She never quite found her rhythm within the system, and her chemistry with Clark never clicked the way fans hoped it would. The final names, Khadijah Stokes and Chloe Bibby, were young developmental players the team actually liked, but sentiment couldn't outweigh the long-term plan. When a franchise commits to a full rebuild, tough choices become inevitable. 8 players gone. Just like that, and overnight, the Fever freed up significant cap space, giving them more financial flexibility than they've had in years. Fans immediately began speculating: who would fill the gaps? Sharpshooters to stretch the floor? Defensive stoppers? Experienced veterans who could match Clark's up-tempo style? Amid the excitement, though, there was a somber undertone. These weren't just roster cuts. They were personal losses, reminders that professional basketball can be brutally unforgiving. Some of these players will find new teams. Others might not make it back at all. It's a harsh reality that separates the pros from the college game, where loyalty means something entirely different. The Fever are moving fast and making ruthless decisions, anyone not aligned with their vision will be left behind. But one question keeps circling among fans. Did the front office move too quickly? Cutting 8 players at once felt bold, maybe even desperate. Yet management insists it was necessary. Painful, yes, but essential. They're betting everything that by cutting away the remnants of the old system, they can finally rebuild something stronger from the ground up. If it works, this night could go down as the moment the Indiana Fever truly grew up and became a legitimate contender. If it fails, though, it could become a cautionary tale, a gamble that backfired and haunted them for years. With 8 players gone, the entire locker room dynamic has shifted overnight. For the first time since Caitlin Clark arrived, the balance of power clearly centers around her. Not just as a scorer, but as the undeniable cornerstone of the franchise. The veterans who once dictated the pace and controlled the culture are mostly gone. What remains is a roster built entirely to move in sync with Clark's leadership. Kelsey Mitchell now stands as one of the few remaining veterans with both experience and respect. After years of carrying the franchise through losing seasons, she's earned her reputation for toughness and loyalty. And by the end of the year, her on-court chemistry with Clark noticeably improved. 2 leaders, finally finding rhythm together in a backcourt that might define the Fever's next era. Insiders within the organization say the front office views Mitchell as an essential stabilizer. A seasoned leader capable of mentoring young talent while smoothly transitioning into a faster, freer offensive style. She's expected to be the glue that guides the young core through this transition, maintaining stability along the way. Then there's Aaliyah Boston, the quiet powerhouse who lets her game speak for itself. Boston's steady impact both on and off the court made her completely untouchable throughout this massive roster shakeup. Alongside Clark, she represents the rock-solid base on which the franchise plans to build its future. The front office reportedly sees them as the 2 pillars of Indiana's next era. Clark, the spark that ignites everything, and Boston, the balance that keeps it together. That's why nearly every personnel move now revolves around enhancing their connection, surrounding them with shooters, screeners, and dependable defenders who can actually match their tempo. Still, not everyone is thrilled about this shift in power. Some remaining players have quietly voiced concern that the team's entire identity is being consumed by Clark's enormous spotlight, while others question if management is putting far too much responsibility on one player so early in her career. Caitlin's meteoric rise has turned the Fever from a struggling small-market team into one of the WNBA's biggest attractions practically overnight. And that level of fame brings challenges most players never face. Every move she makes, every comment she delivers, every play she's involved in is magnified under a relentless spotlight. Yet, leadership at the top remains firm and united. This is Caitlin Clark's team now. Period. Executives have reportedly held multiple meetings to emphasize total alignment, meaning coaches, players, and staff must all operate in full sync with this new vision. One insider even described it as a reset, not a rebuild, a subtle but crucial difference. In short, anyone unwilling to buy in completely won't last long in Indiana. And inside practice sessions, that transformation is already visible. The energy feels lighter and more optimistic. The pace is faster, the ball movement more natural, and the offense flows with a rhythm that wasn't there before. Players are learning to react to Clark's instincts instead of waiting for scripted plays from the bench. Sure, it's messy at times, turnovers happen, confusion sets in, but the growth is real. For the first time in years, there's genuine belief that this team could evolve into a true contender. But with that newfound power comes enormous pressure. The stakes for Clark, White, and the entire front office have never been higher. One wrong step, one bad losing streak, and the same fans praising this bold overhaul could turn on them instantly. The Fever made a statement by cleaning house, but whether they made the right decisions will only become clear next season. Behind every surprising roster cut lies something most fans overlook: money. The front office didn't just move players for performance reasons, they opened up serious financial space. By cutting 8 contracts in one sweep, Indiana freed millions in cap room, changing everything for the upcoming 2026 season. This wasn't only about basketball fit, it was about creating flexibility in a league where every dollar counts. The Fever's payroll had become clogged with mid-tier deals that produced minimal payoff. Veterans like Natasha Howard and Ariel Powers brought experience, sure, but their hefty salaries outweighed their actual impact. Both looked fine on paper, but neither could elevate the team when it mattered most. According to sources, the front office grew increasingly frustrated watching major salary chunks go to inconsistent performers. Cutting ties was brutal, no question, but it finally gave Indiana the freedom to chase higher impact talent and, more importantly, players who complement Clark's skill set instead of clashing with ITT. This point, it's no secret that Caitlin Clark has completely transformed the business side of the franchise. Ticket sales have exploded, primetime coverage has soared, and merchandise sales shattered every team record. The organization fully understands that as long as she's wearing a Fever jersey, they're a premium draw, and that raises both the opportunity and the risk. Ownership wants to seize this moment while it lasts, because in pro sports, windows like this never stay open forever. And that's exactly why this rebuild isn't only athletic or strategic, it's deeply financial at its core. Every deal they sign, every sponsor they partner with, and every roster move they make now has to align perfectly with a single goal: maximizing this new era. Kelly Crosscuff, one of the Fever's top executives, has reportedly been the mastermind behind this entire financial transformation. Her plan sounds simple but cuts deep: surround Clark with low-cost, high-IQ players who can stretch the floor, hit open shots, and buy into a modern offensive system without demanding superstar salaries. The Fever wants selfless shooters who move without the ball, veterans willing to sacrifice a bit of money for a shot at a real winning culture, and hungry young players eager to prove themselves. Think Iowa basketball on steroids, but built within a smart, realistic budget that doesn't tie the franchise down for years to come. That's where Indiana might have quietly found a major competitive edge. While other WNBA teams overspend chasing super teams and name recognition, the Fever are methodically constructing something sustainable: a roster that fits both stylistically and financially, without creating long-term damage. The goal is lasting control over their future, not short-lived hype that fades after one hot season. They want to build around Clark and Boston without being shackled by bad contracts or inflated salaries that kill flexibility. Of course, not everyone is praising this hard-nosed approach. Several agents have publicly blasted Indiana for being too ruthless in clearing players, claiming it sends the wrong message, that loyalty means nothing. But for the front office, loyalty doesn't win trophies. Smart structure does. And they're betting big that financial discipline and intelligent roster construction will turn the Fever into a consistent powerhouse instead of a one-year wonder that fizzles out. These moves weren't just about removing underperformers. They were about eliminating wasted spending and empty excuses. The Fever's message couldn't be clearer: if you don't add real value on the court or fit financially, you won't be part of this new era. Because from now on, everything in Indiana revolves around two things: Caitlin Clark and the bottom line. When the news broke that the Fever had released 8 players in a single night, social media absolutely erupted. Within minutes, hashtags like #FeverPurge and #ClarkEra were trending across X and Instagram. Some fans called it the boldest decision in franchise history, others accused management of completely losing control. The WNBA hadn't seen a shakeup this massive in years, maybe ever. And everyone had a take: analysts, former players, and die-hard fans who'd lived through every painful losing season. For Clark supporters, this felt like vindication. They'd been saying all along that the team wasted too much time forcing her into a system that didn't suit her at all. "Let her cook" became a rallying cry once again, echoing across comment sections and sports talk shows. Fans demanded that Indiana unleash the same fast-paced, fearless style that made Clark a national sensation at Iowa: the deep logo threes, the insane no-look passes, the energy that made her must-watch TV. But not everyone bought into the hype. Critics accused the franchise of folding to star power and public pressure. Some claimed the mass cuts showed weakness, that the Fever were letting fans and sponsors dictate basketball decisions instead of trusting their own judgment. Others warned that building a franchise around one player, no matter how extraordinary she is, could backfire if chemistry fails. ESPN panels debated non-stop whether this was a genius master plan or a panic gamble. One viral headline summed it up perfectly: Indiana's rebuild, genius or panic. Inside the locker room, reactions were mixed. Players close to those released described the atmosphere as sad but unsurprising, like everyone saw the storm coming. A few posted emotional farewells on social media, thanking teammates and fans while hinting at frustration with how things were handled. On the other hand, younger players expressed real excitement, saying the team finally feels focused and aligned for the first time in years. It's that bittersweet mix, loss and optimism intertwined. Then the media frenzy hit another level when fans noticed that Clark had liked a few posts supporting the roster overhaul. That tiny tap of a button sent the internet into chaos, thousands of comments analyzing what it meant. Did she endorse the cuts? Was she finally taking full control of the team's direction? Intentional or not, it reinforced the growing belief that Caitlin Clark isn't just the face of the Fever. She's the driving force behind the franchise's entire transformation. TV networks jumped on it instantly. Talk shows ran segments for hours about how this move could reshape the WNBA's power balance, especially as the league pushes for expansion and record ratings. And suddenly, Indiana, once overlooked and irrelevant, became the most talked about team in the league overnight. Whether you love it or hate it, the Fever are officially the story now. Amid all the chaos and noise, one thing stands absolutely clear. This massive roster overhaul has reignited fan passion in a way the league desperately needed. The Fever may have lost 8 players, but they've gained something far more powerful: relevance, intrigue, and the undivided attention of the entire basketball world watching their every step. Now that the storm has finally calmed, the Indiana Fever stand at a defining crossroads. With 8 players gone, significant cap space cleared, and the spotlight brighter than ever, this offseason could shape the next decade of the franchise's identity. The front office has one mission: to construct a roster that not only complements Caitlin Clark's brilliance but also restores the Fever's reputation as a true powerhouse. This is no longer a franchise searching for direction, it's one aggressively rewriting its destiny. Sources say the front office already has a bold blueprint in motion. They're targeting knockdown shooters who can thrive off Clark's vision, athletic wings capable of defending without killing the tempo, and experienced leaders who know how to win when pressure peaks. One executive summed it up perfectly: the ideal Fever lineup should be fast, fearless, and fluid. The vision is crystal clear: build a modern offense centered entirely around Clark's creativity and Aaliyah Boston's dominance in the paint. Expect a completely new look next season, in style, pace, and mentality. The coaching staff is under immense pressure to adopt a freer, more dynamic system, with practices focused on constant motion, spacing, and read-based decisions rather than rigid play calls. It's a full-blown cultural reset, and exactly what fans have been demanding since Clark's first day in Indiana. But no rebuild comes easy. They take time, egos must realign, and expectations are sky-high. Caitlin Clark isn't just a player anymore, she's the face of the WNBA's next generation. Every shot she takes, every loss the team suffers will be magnified under the national microscope. And if the Fever stumble early next season, critics will swarm instantly, questioning every decision. The front office knows patience will run thin, and the outside noise will be deafening. Yet beneath that pressure, there's something electric happening in Indiana right now. Ticket sales are soaring, merchandise is selling out, and for the first time in years, the Fever have something priceless: genuine excitement. The mix of Clark's star power, Boston's reliability, and a faster, sharper roster could transform this team into must-watch basketball every night. This isn't just a rebuild, it's a revolution unfolding in real time. The Fever have cleared out the old guard, rewritten their blueprint, and placed the franchise's fate in the hands of a generational talent. If it works, this off-season purge will be remembered as the exact moment Indiana rose from the ashes. If it doesn't, it'll stand as a cautionary tale about the dangers of betting everything on one player. Either way, the next chapter of Fever basketball won't be quiet. It'll be bold, unpredictable, and fueled by one mission: to make sure Caitlin Clark's era delivers everything fans and the league have been waiting for. The Indiana Fever's decision to release 8 players wasn't just a roster move, it was a declaration. This is the dawn of a new era, one defined by fearless choices, sharper vision, and total commitment to building around Caitlin Clark. The franchise is done playing it safe. They're all in on a system designed to unleash her full potential and rekindle the fire that once made Indiana elite. Fans can already feel it, that shift in energy, the promise of something bigger. Whether this gamble becomes the franchise's defining breakthrough or its biggest misstep remains to be seen. But one truth is undeniable: the Fever have everyone's attention. From the front office to the hardwood, every move now carries weight. And as the new season looms, one message echoes through the entire league: the Caitlin Clark era has officially begun.